Now let's turn to Ben Rhodes, former Deputy National Security Advisor under President Obama. Ben, thank you for being here tonight. I know you've had a busy set of hours on this network. The first thing I have to ask you is, I'm old enough to remember the first time the U.S. struck targets in Iraq. And while we're talking a lot about Iran here, I wonder what you think the implications are of striking targets in Iraq to go after Iran vis-a-vis the U.S. relationship with Iraq.
Well, I think it's potentially very complicated, Alex. The reality is these groups have been operating, as Missy said, in Iraq since the height of the Iraq War. They're pretty entrenched there. And the U.S. has 2,500 troops in Iraq dating back to the counter-ISIS campaign. After we withdrew all the troops from Iraq in 2011, 2,500 remain as part of supporting counterterrorism operations, training the Iraqi security forces. But their presence is controversial inside of Iraq. And part of what these groups want is to provoke the United States into actions that lead to the Iraqi government asking the U.S. to get out, essentially. And that may be what's happening here, because it puts a lot of pressure on the Iraqi government. Look, it makes them look like they don't control their sovereignty. They're not a part of these strikes. So every time the U.S. takes a pretty significant military action in Iraq, kind of over the head of the Iraqi government, which is majority Shia, has ties to Iran itself, it puts them in a really difficult spot here. So Iraq becomes kind of a battleground for this proxy between the U.S. and Iran. Also, if these groups wanted to respond, one of the places that is available to them as a target is the U.S. diplomatic presence in Iraq. Thus far, we've seen them target U.S. troops in the region, but also I'm sure that there's really heightened security around the U.S. embassy in Baghdad and for all Americans in Iraq.
Well, yeah, and I'm sure the Biden administration remembers, what we've done in Iraq and is sort of understands those ramifications as well, which leads me to, what do you think of the president's calibration here? I mean, we saw what he did when American sort of commercial interests were threatened in the Red Sea. Did he have to respond at this level when American lives were lost?
No, he didn't have to. I mean, the reality is there's been a war that has been a regional war for a long time. Since Hamas's attack on October 7th, that war has escalated dramatically across the region. What he's chosen to do here, Alex, is he's kind of gone about as far as you could turn the dial up without going directly into Iran. That would be crossing a major threshold into a direct confrontation between the U.S. and Iran. What it feels like they're doing here in dozens of strikes today on several different locations in Iraq and Syria, and signaling that it's just the beginning of something, it feels like they're really going after essentially this network of militias and groups and supply nodes where the IRGC provides weapons to these groups, or just places where they operate. And they may be trying to really put all these groups on their back foot. Now, that may help deter in the near term their capacity to launch attacks against U.S. troops. Where I'd caution, Alex, though, is that these groups aren't going to come out and surrender. They've lived through the Iraq War. They've lived through the Syrian civil war. The Houthis have lived through years of war in Yemen. They can be knocked back, but you're not going to eliminate these groups in the same way that Israel's not going to eliminate Hamas in Gaza. So I just think at some point, the only way to really bring security to U.S. forces in the region is for there to be a de-escalation and frankly, a de-escalation in Gaza as well as across the region. They seem to want to send this message and knock these groups back in the meantime, but it's a very volatile and unpredictable situation in a part of the world where we've learned one thing, Alex, one thing. We don't control events in the Middle East. Unpredictability is likely to follow any action that we take.